What is up, Finn fans? Episode 3 of the starting lineup with my co-host Reason from Finside the NFL. Reason, me and you were chatting behind the scenes. How you doing, bud?
Well, technically, it was behind the screen. If you think about it, behind their screen.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm all right, man. Getting ready. It's draft season, dude. Like I had Damian Parson on today. I had Jordan Reed on last week. I got Kyle Krabs coming on Friday. And bro, it's draft season. Mock board, like, man, I've revved up the speed in which I'm releasing these mock board videos. And it's draining, bro. I'm not gonna lie to you. Like, I'm tired and I'm counting down the days to drop this quarterback big board and be over with it, and then just drop the text versions of the rest of them, bro. I'm ready.
Right, just get the 3 days over with. Are you going to be live for the third day?
In the early stages of Inside the NFL, I used to be live for that third day, but that is an effort. Now, this year we do have picks. 116 to 155 is interesting. But see, you start sticking around till the 200s, you're taking glorified UDFAs.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I haven't decided yet. I find it's better, like, and I know you do the similar thing. I would prefer, like, recap the day.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, who wants to sit up there and watch any one of us for 5 or 6 hours?
They don't even announce them anymore. And it's so
commercials.
long.
Yeah.
At some point, you just have to look at the ticker and be like, "Oh, we took somebody." Like, no.
Yeah. I to be honest with you, I just go to 155 or 156 or whatever it is, and then I just turn my stream off if I were going live. But
I think I'll just do shorts for every pick we take on day 3.
Well, that's smart. That's a good idea. Hey, thanks for the idea, bro.
There you go, man.
No, I'm joking. I'll probably be on day 3 is probably when I'll be heaviest on X.
Okay. Yeah.
Like, if anyone knows me, I mean, and you remember, I used to be a madman on X in the first couple of years, and I toned it down a little bit. But draft season is when I always come back out, and I'm really, game day, game week, and draft season is when I'm probably the most active on X. So that'll probably be the most active day I'll be on X for day 3.
And it's so funny too, because like for day 1 and day 2, I stay off of all that stuff, and then when the pick comes in, I like put my horse blinders on. I'm like, don't ruin it for me.
Dude, since the Tuesday night panel when we picked Tua and everything, what I do, dude, is I just don't look at the chat. Just focus on the screen ahead of you. You know what I mean? Like that's what I do, So, but man, I'm excited. It's a big week, couple mocks next week. We were talking about we're probably gonna do a mock next week on this show, and that'll be the evening of the draft.
Two brains combined. Just so people know, this isn't just a Sesame Street shirt. It says raised on the street.
That's amazing.
So people probably look at me like, "Oh, you got a Sesame Street
Big
shirt.
Bird?
What's going on over there?"
That's amazing.
Raised on the streets, bro. Raised on the streets.
Oh my god! Do you remember that shit? Do you remember that shit? Yo, do you remember the Chappelle skit? This what was it called again? But remember, they had the Grouch, and he had the needles and stuff like that. Wild, bro. Oh man,
it's too funny. Doug, we need you and your dad doing live draft day. No, my dad. First off, Jordan, I love you. I appreciate it. My dad doesn't. I remember every time we used to go to the bar before I would do this. So like 7-8 years, someone would ask him like, "Hey, like we were watching the Dolphins game, and I'd be at the other end of the bar, and someone would be talking, who the Dolphins take this year?" And he'd go, "Doug, who the Dolphins take?" He doesn't give a crap about the draft.
Ray's a legend. Yeah, D-Hug is right. It's Knee-High Park. That's what it was.
There you go.
Ray is a legend. Listen, okay? We don't need him for draft. We just need him to sit around and tell stories, Yep.
I'm thinking of miking him for the live streams I do, but I'm afraid because he's got a potty mouth, and I don't want to get into too much trouble. Because you can take these labs now, the Rhodes, and I attach them to my my soundboard. So I'm just gonna get another one, because like when you're watching the game and we have to like stay focused on the microphone. I prefer to rock this, and I can like move around.
Yeah,
I'm like, should I get him one? But he likes to drop F-bombs, and I'm like, oh.
Honestly, I've been thinking about moving off the Shure because there's another company. What is it? DGI?
Mhm.
Was it DJI or DGI?
I
You
think
know what
it's
I'm talking about?
DJI, yeah.
Yeah, they make another high quality. I've been looking at, yeah, because I'm probably gonna make. I agree with you. Like, when you're in the moment, you want to lean back. You know what I
Uh-huh.
mean? And I agree with you.
Yeah, because I have my
Honestly,
TV over here, so I'm always watching
yeah,
like this, and I gotta lean. Where
yeah.
when you're watching without anyone watching, we're always like, like we're like into it. So I think I might
Well,
rush.
think about it. Had we like, let's say we went to training camp together last year,
Mhm.
and let's say we wanted to, do a report. You'd probably prefer having a Rhodes or the
Mhm.
DGI or whatever, DJI or whatever. You'd prefer that than holding a, like it's 1996,
It,
holding the mic.
it's funny too because this comes with, I don't know where I put it, but it comes with, you slide it into a microphone holder, so I can like.
Oh, okay, you can turn it into a mic.
Pretty cool.
Cool.
And then you just plug into your phone and stuff. It's not
Oh,
bad.
boy.
For anyone in the chat that's looking into doing this type of stuff, or just go get yourself one. I don't know where I put the receiver, and my desk is a hot mess express. But yeah,
I feel that, bro.
you got your mic and you plug the other one into your phone, and you can make videos like that. Anyway, enough with the rambling. Me and Reason haven't talked
Technology
in a hot
tips with
minute.
Dougley and Reason. All right.
We haven't talked in a hot minute, so we're just trying to get it off our chest. We're going to start with this topic because obviously this topic is a big topic that everyone's been talking about.
Mhm.
Where did the Miami Dolphins trade Ramsey to? Now, I got a question on top of this question. Do you think it's going to be before the draft? Now, cap compensation is going to be ridiculous. So, do you
Mhm.
think somehow it happens during or before the draft?
I think it would happen on day 2 or day 3. I think so. What I think is going to happen is I think there's going to be a run. I think you're going to have. There's a realistic possibility that Travis Hunter, Jahdae Barron, and Will Johnson all go before the Dolphins pick. Like, we know the San Francisco 49ers got to replace Javarius Ward. There's been I know everyone's mocking a running back
Mm,
to Dallas,
okay. Yeah.
but Dallas is a team I'd watch for not only Ramsey, but if one of those Jahdae or Will Johnson's on the board, I would watch them at 12 too. Like, they could sneakily take one to pair, with their already, Pro Bowl cornerback over there. They could, with Diggs and stuff, so they could pair over there. Um, you know, I don't know. I think this happens on day 2 or day 3 because I think I've heard rumblings of Savon Revel in the 20s.
Mm,
Trey Amos, I've heard, is going in the 20s. So now we're at 5. Okay. Benjamin Morrison, the tape is really good. If he didn't have an injury, he's probably going in the first round. So that's 6. He's probably going at worst top. You know what I mean? I think there's legitimately like 6 or 7 guys there's going to be a run on where teams might just wait to see how it plays out. Cornerback needy teams might see how the first day plays out and then sees how the top of day 2 plays out. And then you see a Ramsey trade similar to, like, remember Trent Williams wasn't traded on day 1
mhm,
when the Niners acquired him,
mhm.
right? Like, I think similar to that. I think
Okay.
that would be, I don't know if he's going to go before. I don't think so.
Now, do you think that does happen, or do you think it's going to be a post June 1st? See, that's where it gets interesting because again, it's the whole situation with
Okay.
Greer and the
So,
future of these two guys, and
all right.
you
Yeah. Okay. So, all right, let's just put okay. So you knew that I knew like an hour after that, not even an hour after that Pretty Ricky thing. I talked to a few people
Mhm.
and then I got confirmation from Pretty Ricky himself. I knew it was Ramsey. Okay.
Yeah.
In talking to multiple people, and I put this on my Patreon and stuff. So I talked to an insider from the AFC West. All right.
Mhm.
He told me Ramsey's been on the block for months. I
Wow.
talked to someone else. They said Ramsey's unhappy. And Ramsey's been unhappy. Like, from everything I've gathered, the Dolphins were not sideswiped by this, and they've known about this, and this has been a possibility for some time. You know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
this wasn't one thing where he woke up last week and was like, yo, let's have a conversation with them, to his agent, and then they mutually agreed. No, it didn't happen like that. And I think there's varying factors. I don't know if he was the biggest fan of Mike McDaniel. I know he's a
Mhm.
big fan of Anthony Weaver. I
Mhm.
don't know if he was a big fan of Mike McDaniel. I don't know if he was a fan of the way the culture and everything was trending at the end of the season. I would put him, and this part is me theorizing.
Mhm.
I think him, Calais, and Teron Armstead were not happy with how the Tyreek stuff played out in terms of, and I always go back to this, when I had Richmond on the channel right after it all happened. Listen, Richmond always sits on the fence. Okay. He never really, that was the first time I ever heard him. That's the first time I ever heard him, Dougley, say to move off a player. And you know what he said, bro? I can see the pain in his eye as a former player. And he said, Dougley, he said, you can't trust him.
Wow.
I don't know if I was in that locker room, I can't ever trust him again. You have to move. So Calais Campbell's 39, old school. What do you think he's thinking? Jalen Ramsey, 31, probably having discussions about moving to safety out Charles Woodson. He wants to win before his seat because his legacy is on the line here. Does he want to waste it in this and where this culture is going? You know, Teron Armstead, there was real possibility he was going to play another year potentially and hold off that knee replacement surgery, but he vied to like, hey, I'm not going to hold it off. I'm going to go with it. And old school guy in his 30s, I think there's a reason why we lost key leaders, bro. And I'll tell you this much, Ramsey leaving to me, let me ask you this. Is Ramsey to you the biggest red flag of all three of them?
Yeah.
Because I think that's the biggest indictment, bro.
When they came out that Ramsey, like when you talked to me and you were like, it's Ramsey, I was like, this isn't good. This is because for the whole like draft process and doing my big boards and my draft needs, like I literally did my draft needs before the news broke. And I had corner too. And I knew in the comment section people were gonna be like, why do you got corner too? And it's because I had this in the back of my head. I'm like, now they need a corner because beforehand, you don't have to take Will Johnson at 13. You don't have to take Barron at 13. You can take, back when we thought Amos was going to be in the second round, you could take one of these guys. They could be a corner too. They can really help with Jalen Ramsey. Now we're sitting in a situation where it's like and even with and we'll get to more about this, but even with what Greer said, talking about we're not holding Cam Smith's hand anymore. He needs to do something here. Who do you have? Ethan Bonner, Storm Duck. Those are going to be your 1-2 corners. Like not knocking them, but like you're going to be facing some really good receivers this year.
Yeah.
We're going to get torched.
And can I be honest with you? It doesn't seem like the new defensive regime is a fan of Ethan Bonner the way Fangio's regime was. It really, you get that sense right away. Now with Cam Smith, bro, the tape was good at South Carolina. Like first round quality tape, man. The problem we've learned with the player, and I've gone back to this, there's a reason why he was like the last rookie in that class to get his money and get his deal signed. He has serious maturity issues. And this has come down to a work ethic thing on the player. The talent, the ability is there, but injuries and the work ethic of the player have stopped him from being what you look like the ceiling was on tape when you watched him.
So Jonathan asks a question. He says, I thought Ramsey didn't ask for a trade. Greer was lying out of his butt.
Yeah, bro. Like how do you mutually come to an agreement? You think the Dolphins hit him up and said, yo, bro, we want to trade you? He said, yeah, I'm good with that. No, like Ramsey clearly was talking with his agent and they set up a meeting and
to try to resolve it, and they couldn't resolve it, so they came to a mutual understanding. And so that's exactly what happened. He definitely asked for a trade, and they were like, "Oh no, hey, come talk." And then they talk, and he probably was like, "If Hill's on the team, I'm not on the team." And they were like, "Well, we can't really."
Well, I think you know what the factor was, bro. I think because he's getting up there.
He wants to win another one.
And he wants guarantees, right? In 2026, he's got 2 years of no guaranteed money and then a void year, right? I believe is how the rest of the contract goes.
Yeah.
After this year, I'm telling you, he said, I want money. Because remember last year I knew he was getting the money before it came out, right? Like, and like I even remember hitting up Omar and being like, hey, he was at practice, and I hit him up in the DMs. I said, yo, dude, I'm hearing Ramsey's getting new money, blah, 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 blah. Check on it. And Omar's like, oh, yeah, he's not getting new money. He's not getting new money. But then the Surtain deal got announced like an hour after I messaged Omar. Then the Surtain deal got announced. Then I got word back that the Surtain deal held it up. Then it got announced 48 hours later, I think, after the Surtain deal. And I think that's what we might be at. I think he's looking at the top of the market and he's saying, I want top of the market guaranteed money at least in 2026, especially if I'm going to move to safety for you.
Mike, very great question. We will get to that. We will talk about Greer because the Greer even came out and said, "Oh no, there's no contract dispute." Because somebody asked him, "Does he want more money?" He's like, "Oh no."
Yeah.
But like you said, looking at his contract now, there's an out. After this year, there's an out. There's no real guaranteed money anymore.
Exactly.
After this year.
That's what it came down to. He wanted security, and he was seeing the direction of the team, especially, and wanted security, and was like, no. And they're like, no. And he's like, you know what? With the way this team is going, anyways, like it's probably better if I get out of here. That's probably exactly how it went.
He already has a ring with LA, right?
Yeah,
so there's that. He probably likes Miami. Like, who doesn't like Miami? So in his mind, he probably was like, just make me more secure money wise. And they probably were like, we can't. And he was like, well, then, you know, the ring I already have in the area, it doesn't trump me not being paid as much as I am.
And I think, okay, so where do you think, because I think he still believes I can go chase money and a legacy. So I have two teams in mind where I think he's going to go. Where do you think he's going to go?
So I was thinking, and I'm looking at teams that are like on the cusp, like because you have like, you know, you have like the Ravens, you have the Eagles, you have the Chiefs, like you have all these teams that you could possibly trade. And I'm looking at all the draft orders right now, and you could possibly trade to these guys like Kansas City. They have 2 3s, a 4, you know, that's a possibility. Baltimore has 2 4s, you know, but the teams that I'm like thinking of that are like on the cusp is like Tampa Bay. Like Tampa Bay would be, you know, because he likes the warm weather.
Not far of a drive.
Minnesota would be a good idea, but he's not going to want to play in Green Bay or you know, Chicago. So like Tampa Bay maybe. You know, there was rumors of Arizona, but if he doesn't want to be here because of non-championships, he ain't going to Arizona. But I'm looking at teams like that are like on the cusp. Even Dallas does make a lot of sense because they have while you were talking about Dallas, I looked up, they have a lot of draft picks. Like they have a 1, 2, 3, 2 5s, 2 6s, and 3 7s. So they have almost as much as Miami. So there's a possibility there too. But that's my thought process. Maybe even like the Chargers. The Chargers, you know, go back to LA where he's familiar. You have Harbaugh there. Those are the teams I'm looking at. Like they're right there. And they're looking for someone because these teams that are already won a championship, they're probably like, we don't need Ramsey. So that's what
I think Dallas is a sneaky one to look at corner in general in the draft and maybe for Ramsey too. But Atlanta, because he has a strong tie to Raheem Morris, they love each other. They love each other. And I could see they got that defense better last year, and it gets them to the NFC. It gets them out of the AFC. So Atlanta, to me, like that would be an ideal situation if you could get him over there. Now, I've heard even like the Rams are interested in him too.
Bring him back, yeah.
You know what I mean? I suggested, now I don't know if you could do it, nor do you have the cap. If you could do a swap for swap to Green Bay for Jair Alexander, would you do it?
Alexander's injuries worry me, and I feel like if we did do that, one, it would be a, you know, big fu to Ramsey because go play in the cold now, twice, you know, 10 times a year. But it's Jair's you know, injury. Someone brought up a good one, the Raiders, and you know how we all like Mayo.
I've heard they are interested in them. I had them on my Patreon update. The Raiders, another team, and we'd figure out if him and Fangio really had tension. Imagine if the Philadelphia Eagles were to swoop in for him.
Did you see that stupid trade offer where it was the Dolphins would give? What was it? Let me look it up on Twitter.
Was it the Devontae Smith one?
It was so dumb. Why would we trade for Devontae Smith?
I don't remember what the deal was, but what was the package? It was like, wasn't it one of those like cheap like clickbait NFL accounts anyways?
So it's ML Football, and they said the package would be Ramsey and the 13 So it would be, the package would be Ramsey the 13th and the Dolphins' second round pick in exchange for Devontae and their 32nd. So we
No.
would give them a first, a second, and Ramsey for Devontae Smith and their first.
I can just stay at 13 if I want a receiver that bad, and I could probably get Tat McMillan. Why would I even do this?
It's such a, and we don't need him. Like, we don't need, like, if it was for a defensive lineman, call me intrigued, give me Jalen Carter, but it's gonna cost a lot more than that. But like with the Raiders, like Michael Mayer, maybe just a straight up.
Now, hey, I'll trade you Tyreek for Devontae Smith straight up. You want to swap? I give you a 5th, you give me a 7th. Okay, like let's talk that. I'll give you a late day 3 pick that's going to be a glorified UDFA. Anyways, we can swap that, and you can take Tyreek, and I'll take Devontae. Let's go. I mean, I'll do that.
Putting the 3 of them back together, Tua, Devontae, and Jalen Waddle.
Yeah, but I'm not touching my 13th or any of those. No. I'm trying to add picks to the top 100. You know?
That when I saw that, I was like, that's just so dumb. Why?
Because I'm going to tell you this. If you went back to your point earlier, if you get intel that a team wants a corner and there's a run at the second and they're eyeing someone, I would call them and say, do you want Ramsey? Give me your 4th. And so I can shift back. What does Atlanta have? Let me look at what Atlanta has in terms of picks.
They got a 1, a 2, a 4. They only have 5.
What's their 4th?
16th overall. 16th in the 4th. So 118. It's just out of the 100.
Oh, I'll take that for Ramsey. You're not going to get 46. That's their other pick, right?
Yeah, no.
You're not going to get 46. I'll take 118. I don't want a 218 or a 242, so.
You ain't getting a 3rd.
And see, maybe what if it's a team like that and you leverage them for a 2nd next year? Like, okay, so they're offering you 116 this, what was it? 18, what was it again?
118. It was like,
they're offering you 118 right now. But next year, they're offering you a 3rd or a 2nd. What would you take?
Or even like you said with the Rams, take their comp pick at 101. 3rd round.
Yeah, man, if he's willing to go back to LA, I'll take 101. That's a bang on right at the 101. You know what I mean?
They just got to figure out the whole cap situation, because then the Dolphins are going to be eating negative $14 million in cap.
Well, okay? So isn't it? I think I was looking at it. Isn't it only like the top 5 picks are going to count against our cap? As it stands right now,
it's like $6 million is the full draft is going to cost the Dolphins.
So you add another one, it'll be around $7 million, right? But after we get rid of Ramsey, people were mathing it, Barry Jackson and stuff. They said we'd have about $7 million in cap space after we traded him, because we already paid that $4 million bonus, right?
Yeah, because it's a negative 12.5 million if we trade him before June 1st.
Can I tell you this, bro? If they trade him before the draft, that tells you how bad he wanted out and how bad they wanted a pick for him to just get rid of him.
Like,
I sit back and I'm in absolute amazement, Doug. We are year 1. This guy arrives here, and we're 2 wins away heading into that Baltimore game from winning the AFC, and then we lose that, but we're still 1 game away from winning the division. And we've gone from that to, I'm good. I want out.
Speaking of all that stuff, let's switch over to this man, because it seems like he is a big proprietor to the fact that we are in that situation, because 2023 we were on fire, and that press conference was a press conference, man, and it was supposed to be a pre-draft press conference. How many draft questions were asked? There was like 2, maybe 3 out of like 20 draft. There was more about Jalen Ramsey, about what are you doing with the trenches, what are you doing with the offensive line. What he said about Liam Eichenberg bothered the crap out of me. I gotta pull it up, because I was just like, what do you mean? I think he was like, oh, we got he essentially was like, he's gonna be on the team, and
he said he's gonna compete, basically, essentially, right? Like he said he's gonna compete. I'm telling everyone, Larry Borum, quote me, for all of you who don't watch Inside the NFL and are Dougley fans, quote me, Larry Borum and Liam Eichenberg is going to be at left guard to us what Jack Driscoll and Liam Eichenberg was at right guard.
Exactly.
I can already see it setting up. And that's why I want them to add a pick because, I had Damian Parson from Locked On the NFL Draft today. Add a Tate Ratledge. Add a big guy I'm a proponent of, Jonas Savannah. You know what? I'm even on board. Hey, if Kenneth Grant is going, because remind me when we're done the show, I got to tell you something backstage about Kenneth Grant. You got to hear this. Kenneth Grant, okay? Let's say Kenneth Grant's gone. Let's say Membo's gone. Campbell's gone. Johnson's gone. Barron's gone. Let's just say, all right? You could twist my arm. I'd take Donovan Jackson at this stage at 13. Solid left guard was Ohio State's best player when they kicked him to left tackle last year in the playoffs. I would be at that point right now to ensure Liam Eichenberg or Larry Borum because, hey, Dougley, walk with me, as the young kids say, all right? With Patrick Paul and what we saw on tape last year, you cannot afford Larry Borum or Liam Eichenberg taking key starting reps next to him. You need a stud rookie or an experienced, reliable, dependable veteran. And even if you go out and get Isaiah Wynn, he's not reliable or dependable.
No.
You might as well draft a Gray Zabel or a Donovan Jackson or a Tate Ratledge or a Jonas Savannah and fix that. Because also with a Jonas Savannah or Donovan Jackson, Doug,
they play
don't work out. Exactly.
Swap them right over. Because he said Liam returning, he will get the chance to compete for a job. And as soon as I saw that, I was like, you have got to be kidding me. And like you said, it's Jack Driscoll. Jack Driscoll did better than him last offseason and preseason, and they cut him, and Liam Eichenberg got the nod. And and I've been saying this for months. When they signed him back, I'm like, he's gonna start. He's gonna start left guard. I'm gonna lose my mind. And status quo is not good enough, but
because because we already know what the player is, and the player himself has stood in front of a camera and told us, I'm more comfortable at right guard. And why do you want to move James Daniels when he plays his best ball at right guard to left guard to fit Liam Eichenberg in the lineup? Think of how, if they do something like that, I'll be even more pissed, Doug. If they move James Daniels to left guard because Eichenberg's only comfy cozy at right guard, we got an issue, bro. We're letting below average, subpar, shouldn't be starter material players affect legitimate starters and where they play best at. And that's grounds for termination in my book. I don't care. I can't trust you if you're going to do stuff like that.
Ben said, what picks would we have to give up to trade Eichenberg?
We already gave up picks to move up for him. Wow.
It's funny too, because when I read that, I went back and looked because I did I normally do. I go back 3 years and I kind of see how the draft fell. And that 2022 draft, we started with we could have had 13 picks and we ended up with only 4. And our 81 overall pick, that third rounder, went to the Giants that we traded up for Liam Eichenberg in 2021. So it hurt, but him saying what picks do we have to give up to get rid of him is just hilarious because I give up my first to get rid of Liam Eichenberg.
Yeah. Let me ask you this, and we'll get into. First of all, okay, I think he looks super defeated. I want to know what your thoughts are on if he looks super defeated.
Look at the picture below me.
I know. Yeah. Age is catching up to that goatee, brother. I'm telling you, I remember that thing was
after 4 years.
I remember that thing was clean and but okay, let me ask you this. Do you think the way he was talking about Ashton Davis in that safety room and stuff, do you think Malachi Starks or Amanda Warrior off the board at 13 for them?
Kind of, yeah. I think it's going to be corner or defensive line, defensive tackle, or trade down. Because when he mentioned that trade down was a big possibility, he even he really emphasized on that. I think those are your 3 options. Obviously, we know he's not a big proprietor of taking guards in the first round, especially early in the first round. Which sucks because again, he said we have 2 starters and we like the depth. We have 4 safeties on the team. And one of them can't stay healthy. And Ashton Davis is just he's that third guy that you play at the line and you'll blitz him. He's not a legit starting safety. He might think we have him, and we could possibly have NFL starting safeties on this team, but they're not good enough to really do anything. So you add in a man. I'm fine with them with an addition to somebody. So say, God forbid, we don't get Starks or Manwari, and the draft's over, and he goes out and gets Quandre Diggs or Simmons.
Yeah.
Give me one of them. Just give me one of those two guys, and then I'm like, okay, because I'm fine with Ashton Davis with Diggs or Simmons, or I'm fine with Melifanu with one of these guys. I'm fine with that combination. But you have those two as your starters, we're getting beaten deep a lot.
Yeah. I think this is why you need another pick too, because if you add that pick between 48 and 98, I'm really high on Andrew Makuba. I think the instincts of a guy like Xavier Watts are crazy. I love a guy like his Hunter Waller from Wisconsin. All of a sudden now you can take a safety there too. Think about this. If you got 13, 48, a pick in between 48, 98, and then 98, we can attack corner, DT, add a safety to that room, add a guard to that room, and we've got a fifth pick where we could like double up on a DT or double up on a corner if someone's sliding. You know what I mean? Like, or they could take a Kyle McCord if he's sitting around, at 98. I got a feeling they're going to look at Quinn Ewers at 98, but what did you think about what he said about the Tyreek situation and how we're not looking at trading him right now?
He shut that down pretty quickly too. It was like it was
that contract will shut anyone down, eh?
He was like, "Oh, we stand by our whatever, and it has to be 2 firsts if someone really wants them, and blah blah blah."
Yeah.
This like Tyreek Hill on the field obviously is a generational talent, makes this
of course
better, blah 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 blah, all that stuff.
Yeah.
But off the field, he's a problem, and he's a distraction, and he's constantly getting. Regardless if you think this last incident was a big nothing burger or what, he's constantly a big distraction. But there's somebody in the front office or in the coaching staff that loves Tyreek Hill and will do everything and anything to keep that man on this team. And to me, I don't understand why.
I think it's Mike.
And what that's doing is it's making Ramsey want to leave. It's making because you're favoriting a guy who is just a headache and gave up on your team.
You ready? Someone made a great point in my comments that I never thought of. Think about this for a second. And I'll throw an extra. So I'll start off with this. This is my point. Notice when Ramsey got here, how he went to the golf course with Tua and was promoting Tua getting his money. But anything that happened with Tyreek, Ramsey stayed quiet. Okay, now I'll go to the comments someone made in my chat. They said, think about Ramsey, Taron Armstead, and Campbell. These are legitimate, old school, God-fearing type of Christians, right? They're watching someone morally corrupt be constantly protected by the organization and by people in the organization, especially if you're not winning. From just a moral standpoint, you're going to start looking at people funny. You know what I mean? Like, you're going to say, we're not winning and you're letting this go happen. Like, Tomlin, he would cover up for Brown and Le'Veon and all the nonsense because they would win playoff games. Exactly. We can't even get to the playoffs right now after a playoff appearance. You know what I mean? Like, there are like the Ravens, they were cleaning up all the Tucker stuff, right? Deshaun Watson 2.0. They were covering up because they were winning. Deshaun Watson, when he was winning in Houston, right? They were covered. They were, because people don't realize these teams got cleaners that literally their job is behind the scenes to clean up these messes, man. And, when you don't win, it's hard to keep a lid on things because players start talking, players get unhappy. And to your point, you're playing favorites, and eventually people are going to be like, yo, enough of this.
Yeah. And and they asked him, is there a cultural problem? And no, people still love it here. And people, from what I think he said, from what I'm hearing, no one wants to leave and people want to come here. If that's the case, then why did you sign one legit starter in James Daniels, who the only reason you signed him is coming off a big injury? Because if he didn't get injured, James Daniels was
He's out of our price range.
Yeah. That press conference was rough yesterday. Absolutely rough.
Yeah. Listen, I'm telling you backstage, a lot of us didn't know this was scheduled because we really usually think it's historically the week of the draft. I told Dougley backstage, a little part of me was like, is this guy about to announce he's moving to a different position in the organization and they're going to shift to like a Marvin Allen, Champ Kelly regime and then, go on a GM search next offseason? Is that what we're about to see right now? And then some people hit me up and like, no, it's draft. I'm like, oh, okay. But like you said, they only asked a couple of draft questions. They hammered him over everything else. And let's put this out there. I don't think it's a big deal about who Greer did and didn't mention as leaders for the team.
Oh, yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Did he not mention Tyreek Hill as being a leader?
Yeah, exactly.
And we know he's the furthest thing from a leader.
He threw names out of his butt. He said Steeler, which we're all like, yeah, of course. And then he was like, and Tyreek Hill, and that's when we're all like, yeah, right. You're not really naming anybody at this point because you're
you just want to get this over with.
Up.
Yeah.
It's funny. Too funny. Next topic we have here are the expectations this season for the Dolphins, the lowest it's been since 2019 tank season.
I want to hear your thoughts on this one.
I don't think they're as low as that. I would say my expectations are kind of where the last Flores year are, because the last Flores year we weren't bad. Like the roster wasn't bad, but it was nothing like 2023. 2023, our expectations were through the roof. My expectations, not even looking at the draft and who else we can add and the schedule and everything, it's like 9 wins, and that's like the ceiling. That's Tua staying healthy fully. I think we can win 9 wins. But low is like we have a new GM and head coach by mid-season. Yeah. It has to be that way. Like there's no way
hurt, you might as well just go full tank mode.
Yeah, if you get to 2-6 again, go get a quarterback. And it sucks because Tua is a good quarterback, in my opinion. People get on me for saying he's a good one. I'm not calling him elite. I'm not calling him top 10. I think he's a good quarterback. He's can win you some games. But if you're at that point, you're at 2-6, you gotta burn it down. You gotta just go out there, get a top 5 pick, get your quarterback, and bring in a head coach and a GM. But I wouldn't say it's as low as the tank season, but it's close because you look at the roster going into the draft, you have 1 defensive lineman. Like, what are we doing?
When they were fully confident and selling to us that Calais was coming back, you know what I mean? And how has that turned out? But yeah, listen, my expectations are pretty low, but I look at it this way. We win every offseason, but then lose in the regular season. We're losing this offseason. Does that mean we're going to, by God, does that mean we're going to win in the regular season? Like, because none of us have expectations. But I got to say this too, for the people that are like, I'll start the quote. It's it should be the March for Arch is what people should be labeling this. Okay. The March for Arch, but he's not coming out next year. The number 1 guy right now is probably Garrett Nussmeier. And then you get into like Drew Aller, Lenore Sellers, et cetera, et cetera. It's a good quarterback class. If Tua gets hurt, I would ride out Zach Wilson, because that's the mistake they made in 2019, right? Mm-hmm. Should have rode out Josh Allen. Mm-hmm. Sorry, Josh Rosen. Josh Allen. Josh Rosen, right? You should have just rode out Josh Rosen, because we could have laughed at all the people that called him Chosen Rosen. We could have laughed at them even more.
I hated that trade so
people
much.
Forget that, short-term memory. Do you remember how bad that was? Do you remember that, Doug? Do you remember the people that tried to convince us that Rosen was the answer? And they're the same people that say Tua's bad. Yet Tua's led the league in passing yards, led the league in passer rating, led the league in completion percentage. Had games like last year where it's not his fault we lose. He has the 2nd highest EPA ever for a quarterback against a Sean McDermott Bills team, but the defense has the worst EPA ever against the Bills defense, and our special teams has like the worst EPA ever too. You know what I mean? Like, Tua's first Pro Bowl quarterback in 30 years. Mm-hmm. But they try to tell us Tua was crap, but Rosen was the truth. It's crazy, bro. It's lunacy. I will never forget the Chosen Rosen stuff, man. But that's where they screwed up, and you can rectify that. If Tua goes down this year, hitch the wagon to Zach, and if Zach shows some upside, hitch the wagon to the guy you drafted in the third, baby, and let it ride. You know what I mean? Like, that's what I would do.
I remember when we trade, the rumors were out there, and I was like, please don't trade for Rosen. Please don't trade for Rosen. And then the way that we did trade for Rosen, I was like, I felt better about the situation because they wanted the Dolphins second. The Dolphins were like, hold on a second. They traded back with the Saints, picked up another second, and then we're like, okay, now we'll do some business with you. But I hated that trade.
Yeah, but we could have taken DK Metcalf.
Oh my God. You know, I go through, like I said, I do the series where I go back 3 years and I look at it, and there's so many. Like, we took Channing Tindall with Leo Chanel going.
That was my guy in that draft. He's on my man crush list. I was so absolutely bitter when they took, and don't forget, we took Deion Jordan over the right tackle for the Eagles. Yeah, Lane Johnson, right? And that's who I thought we were trading up for, bro. I thought we were moving up for Lane Johnson. They're like, Deion Jordan. I'm like, what?
My friend at the time was an Eagles fan, and we're sitting there watching the draft, and the Dolphins traded up in front of Philly, and I just started laughing at him. I was like, we're getting Lane Johnson. He was like, God, no. And then all of a sudden, Deion Jordan. I was like, oh, what?
Oh, buddy. I got a story for you. 2027. All right. So, 2007. And it was, do you remember the draft back then was on like a Saturday?
Yeah, I remember.
Okay.
That.
So
like what, Saturday, Sunday? That was it?
Yeah. I would do seasonal work, like with a landscaping company or whatever that I used to work with in the summer of college, right? And so we're on a front lawn, and this is back when those flip phones and ESPN. Do you remember, like, you had to like reload the page, like see, because it like was text. Yeah. So, anyways, I'm sitting there, bro. I'm watching Brady Quinn's falling to us, and I'm like, and obviously, like, I knew who this guy, I knew who Ted Ginn was because everyone watched the national championship. If you didn't watch college football, you saw his return in the national championship, right? So I'm sitting there. Here we go. I'm like, here we go, baby. Here we go. Brady Quinn's coming. Buddy, in the like middle of the day, front lawn, quiet street. Who the is Ted Ginn Jr.? Bro, because a lot of football fans on the crew, they look at me, they're like, whoa. Yeah, like, dude, I remember going home. I had an argument with my girlfriend. Like, because I was in such a bad mood over Ted Ginn, over Brady Quinn. And listen, I know he didn't work out, but he didn't work out in Cleveland. Who's to say he wouldn't have worked out in Miami, okay?
Jonathan, that's actually not true. Tua made it into the Pro Bowl as not as an alternate. Tua was the second quarterback in the Pro Bowl. He wasn't an alternate. Tua was an alternate. Mac Jones was an alternate.
No, he wasn't an alternate to the Pro Bowl.
No, he was the top three.
He was a starter. He was a starter.
Yeah. No.
Yeah.
Jonathan, you got your facts mixed up, my man. He wasn't an alternate. Tua went in there. Yeah, dude. Yeah. And then I was at work. I was working at Advanced Auto. Same thing. Ted Ginn. I was like, what? And then Cameron, I know his family very well. We're like, shut up, man.
Oh. Yeah, it's crazy.
Get out of here. Oh man. Let's switch it up. Let's switch it up a little bit. Let's talk about, if the Dolphins possibly trade Tyreek, what's your situation? Would they draft a wide receiver if they do plan on moving off with Tyreek post June 1st? Like, that would be a telling sign if 48 they take a receiver, right? Because all of a sudden you're like, what's going on here? Is that what your thought process is?
Okay, so I theorized this back in the day, just like the Quinn Ewers would be a player they'd like. I've talked about Josh Connolly Jr. I feel like would be a tackle Chris Greer would like it just be love the film. I think they would love Emeka Egbuka, bro. And I got wind last year. They were sniffing around the top 10. If Rome Odunze was going to fall past the Bears, they were going to potentially look into a trade up for Rome Odunze last year.
Mm-hmm.
So then I think, okay, if they're willing to do that last year, and the Tyreek situation has got worse, and again, I go back to my scenario earlier. If Jade's gone, if Johnson's gone, if Campbell's gone, if Membo's gone, if Kenneth Grant's gone, okay, all of a sudden now does a guy like Emeka, everyone wants Tyler Warren. Well, first of all, I'll tell you this much. If you look at the profiles, I don't know if you've done your tight end big board yet. Colston Loveland fits much more what they would want in this offense. He's actually a really good blocker. I don't know where this narrative came out that Colston Loveland can't block. He's actually a really good blocker. He was Michigan's offense in 2024. He's a better route runner. He's a better natural separator. He fits more of the Brock Bowers profile than anyone in this class, except maybe Mason Taylor. But Mason Taylor's not as good as a blocker. I think they would go receiver instead of tight end, dude. And Tet McMillan, I think Jaden Higgins is the next best in terms of size, length, what you want after the catch for a guy that size to complement a pure speed 5'11", 6-foot guy and Jalen Waddle. I think Tet McMillan, Jaden Higgins fit those profiles perfectly. But you look at Emeka Buka, right? He's still, 6'2", I believe? Emeka Buka, I think he is. Yeah. He's still 6'2", right? I think he's just over 200 pounds, if I remember correctly. I don't know. I might be wrong on that, but I think he is just over 200 pounds. But anyways, fantastic blocker, fantastic route runner, has played second fiddle to Jeremiah Smith, who was incredible this year as a freshman. Best freshman. Kid's 19, and I already know he's going to be a gold jacket player in the NFL. Absolutely incredible. Played second fiddle to Marvin Harrison Jr. Played second fiddle to Jackson Smith and Jigba. Didn't complain, just kept producing. Man, I could see that. But if not, dude, I like Savion Williams later on. And again, we go back to this is why they got to add another pick between 48 and 98. We talked about using that fifth to maybe double down. Maybe you can, that fourth pick, maybe you can do if a guy who I'm really high on, but I think they got enough of him is Jalen Noel out of Iowa State. I think he's going to be disgusting, bro, in the right environment. But Jack Besh makes a ton of sense for what we're looking for from a size standpoint. You know what I mean? Like they brought in Kyle Williams. These are guys you're going to want to pick between 48 and 98. And I think that would be the range all of us would be most comfortable in if you're going to move off Tyreek, Doug. I mean, I don't think you'd be happy if now I like Tet McMillan and Emeka, so I wouldn't hate it. I would understand it. I wouldn't do backflips, but I'd understand it. But I feel like a guy like you would hate if they took a receiver at 13. I hate, even 48 because of our needs. I feel like you'd be kind of like, And
Kyle Williams ran a 4.4 too, so it's like
he's a stud, bro. He's a stud.
He is 5'11". But with the addition of Westbrook, I do feel better.
Yeah,
we have that taller guy who can do what, and that's why say they don't draft a wide receiver and they move off from Tyreek Hill. I'm fine with Waddle, Westbrook, and Malik Washington, and even getting to see what Taj Washington can do. I'm fine with that, And then there's still receivers out there that you can get. Is it Amari Cooper still out there? Did he go somewhere?
I don't know.
But there's still
is he still out there? Well, I'll give you a name. You know who's a guy who would be really interesting, dude? And again, trying to get a pick between 48 and 98 if he's on the board. I'll give you two names that would be really interesting. I think you could get him a little bit later. Is Pat Bryant from Illinois, 6'2", 204. But I think this would be a guy to watch. If you could get a pick between 48 and 98, Doug, and so you can give yourself some flexibility here. And then if he's there at 98, or if he's there with that pick in between 48 and 98, and you think someone's going to take him, or maybe he's still I don't think he'll be on the board at 116, but maybe he is. Have you checked out Torrey Horton from Colorado State?
I think so.
Check him out, man. 6'2.5". He's like 196. He runs a 4.41. He has a 37.5-inch vertical, a 10-foot 6-inch broad jump. Like, bro, he's a really good route runner, really good athleticism, good short air explosion, explosive in and out of his breaks, can separate on all three levels. He's got a really good release package against press and off the line of scrimmage, but he's got that size you're looking for, right? 6'2.5", 196. Add a little to that frame, get to 202, 204. We're cooking with something, and you're already running a 4.4, right? Like, I think the thing is we want to find someone, Doug, between 6'2", 6'4", that runs into 4.4s. Like that's what you want to find. And I think Tet and Waddle would be destructive. You know, like
Want
not
that?
Tyreek take the top off destructive, but man, we'd be a threat in the red zone, bro.
It's the physicality. I
Yeah,
went
man.
back to my combine because I remember that name, but I think the only receiver I wrote down from the combine was Jaden Higgins because I
Oh
liked
yeah, yeah, he's a beast. Well, check
6'4".
out. Have you watched Jalen Noel yet?
Not yet, no.
Okay, watch him, bro. He's 5'10", 194. He ran a 4.39 40, 2.55 20-yard, a 1.52 10-yard split. Buddy, he put up 23 bench reps of 225. Okay. 41.5-inch vertical, an 11.2 broad jump, bro. He was
Jeez.
Jaden Higgins' partner. Like if Jaden wasn't popping off, Noel was popping off. And
Mm,
if Noel wasn't popping off, Higgins was popping off. But I think Higgins is more what we need. So you had the right guy written down. But check out Jalen Noel, dude, because if you're going to move off Tyreek, that's probably the closest replacement in terms of profile and player to Tyreek, maybe in terms of explosiveness, speed, all that, and ability. It might be Jalen Noel, bro. He's insane. Like if he goes to the right, like I got him as my wide receiver 6 because I had Burden at 5, and I had to put, even though I'm not high on Golden, I put him in my top 5. But I was tough for me to leave Noel out of my top 5, and I said, bro, I wouldn't be surprised if this bites me in the ass. And he's one of the top receivers of this class if he goes to the right environment, dude. He's a beast. Monster.
yeah, Amari Cooper's still out there too. Him,
Yeah, but is he
Keenan
kind of
Allen.
washed? You
Yeah.
know? Keenan still can like his I don't know if his ability will ever go away because he's always been predicated off he's such a good route runner, right? That's how he'll always be able to separate because he's a good route runner. But that guy never stays healthy, dude.
No, he always gets banged up.
You
Always.
know? It makes it even more impressive what Phillip Rivers did. I mean, you look, Herbert could only do so much with Keenan Allen and Mike Williams. Look what Phillip Rivers did with those guys.
I think
Right?
I think Herbert is a lesser Rivers, but
Yeah, he is. He's Phil. I said this on the day they drafted him. Phillip Rivers 2.0. Yeah,
last
yeah.
one we will talk about NIL. You see the guy underneath me, Tennessee quarterback, decided I'm not gonna play this year, and they took his picture down. They they erased him from Tennessee.
Uh,
Now you're more into college, so I'm really interested to see what you have to say about this. But I do think that it is a problem, but it isn't, because these college players, for the longest time they were getting like raked over the coals, whether it came to,
yeah.
their jersey sales and ticket sales and all this stuff, and then you never saw anything. And now you have this program installed where they can make some money. And Nick Saban left, and obviously he left for a smart reason. But I'm interested to see what you have to say about this.
Yeah, like look at EA Sports. They give them a raise this year for college football. Like they even getting a raise for college football, like to be the other likeness in the game. So people who don't know what NIL stands for, name, image, likeness, whatever. They're obviously the players are now have the ability to sell that. So with Nika Imaliva from Tennessee, basically he was making about $2 million on his NIL deal. He wanted $4 million. All right. But they're with the way everything broke. My good friend Ryan Roberts from A to Z Sports dropped a great article on it, Doug. You should check it out. It dug into what happened behind, and dude, Nico's taking all the blame, but this is what happened. And I'm summarizing, I'm simplifying it, but this is basically what happened. Nico's dad and his agent went behind Nico's back because he comes from the family he comes from. The father is the head of the family, the patriarch. You do what the father says, everyone follows the patriarch. That style, right? Kind of like to the tongue of Aloas, right?
Yeah.
Same thing, right? So anyways, they went behind Nico's back and everyone's back because it's we do what we do and you follow along, right? They started feeling out what other teams, if they would be interested in taking him. They talked, and one of the teams they talked to was Oregon. Oregon blew the lid on them, hit up Tennessee and said, yo, they hit us up, right? But then what also happened, and what we've gone to find out, is the agent started working independently behind the dad's back too and talking to colleges.
Oh my God.
And they were trying to get $4 to $5 million instead of $2 million. And they were saying, hey, would you be interested? And basically Oregon blew the lid on them. Nico's taking the fall, but we've now found out it's the family greed. And that's the problem. Like, I get it. A lot of people, they're coming from situations, whatever the case may be, where they don't have a lot of money. They got to take care of family, and they have that ability now in college. Well, it's going to weed out. We're going to find out who's really about the game and the work ethic, right?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
So, but dude, I think what the problem is right now, I think you need a committee. I think you need an oversight committee, because Damian Parson made a great point on my show today. You got to also limit the portals. Why do we have a winter portal and a spring portal?
Yeah, it makes no sense.
Like free agency, you should have one shot. That's it. Get out or you're stuck. You know what I mean? And the problem you're running into now, man, is these kids, they can have the ability now to take care of their families at 19, 20, 18 years old, depending on who they are. And you're going to have a lot of people that are either going to have untapped potential in the sport of football that are going to throw it away for money. Like, imagine if Manziel had nil deals back then, right? And Matt Leinart. Why did Matt Leinart never work out? He was a party animal at USC, right? So you're going to have guys who don't tap their potential as a player. But I think, Doug, and this is where it's dangerous, you're going to have guys who don't tap into their potential from an education standpoint, because they're going to be spending the money. You got the money to chase chicks your age and older, no matter what. And if you're in warm weathered situations on the West Coast or East Coast, it's even more of a dangerous game, Doug.
And to go to one of your points previously, a lot of these guys would come into college and they would play their butts off to get that contract in the NFL. If they're making that money in college, and especially if their family needs it, and that's a lot of times what some of these football players do. They're like, I'm going to go to college. I'm going to play football. I'm going to get to the big leagues so I can help my family out. If they make that in college, they're not going to be playing hard. They're not going to, they're already getting what they needed to get. So yeah, they need to install, how there's like a cap space and, all this stuff. They need to now install that into the college, because if you're going to start giving these college
caps
money, they shouldn't be making $4 million, $2 million. Shouldn't be making $1 million, to be honest with you. These college kids.
Can I be honest with you though? Like, if you're that gifted of an athlete and you're making $4 million, and let's say you're making $4 million a year for 3 years, how does that now motivate you to be like, yo, if I'm making this in college, what the hell am I gonna? And you're a quarterback. What the hell am I gonna make at the next level?
Yeah,
you know what I mean. If I'm making $4 million a year, you're making more than a lot of vets in. You're making more than a vet minimum in the NFL. You're making more than a lot of veterans who have been around for like 10 years and stuff. You're making more than most backup quarterbacks in the NFL.
Jesus.
And then think about that. Let's say Nico gets $4 million right now. The way that salary cap is going, he comes out. I've heard Nico and Arch are coming out 2027 minimum. Okay. And that was before this Nico nonsense. I heard that about Nico. So I heard Nico and Arch are coming out there. So, okay, so that's 2 years away. So then they get drafted. Then they got 4 years and you're 7 years away from seeing what kind of money they're making. They're going to be in the $80 million range. The cap's going up $30 million a year for like the next 2 or 3 years at minimum. Guys are going to be making, I heard Purdy wants $60 million in San Fran, bro. And they're in the 45, 50 million range, and he wants Dak money. He wants the money Dak has. Have you actually looked at how bad that contract is, dude? Like, did you see that the Cowboys can't cut Dak because they have dude, look it up. You should see what their cap hit is if they cut Dak. It's like $100 million, bro.
God.
I swear to God, he has an ironclad and he has a no trade clause. Dak has an immovable, the most immovable contract, maybe next to Deshaun Watson. Go look at it.
So if they release him before June 1st, it's $129.9 million cap hit. If they trade him before June 1st, it's an $87.9 million cap hit. Oh my God. The only savings is if they trade him after June 1st, you save $25 million. You save $2 million cap, but your dead cap in 2025 is 48, and your dead cap in 2026 is $89 million.
But do you know why he did that, bro? You know why he
Holy
designed that and they
crap.
structured that? So he's got a no trade clause. Okay, so you have to trade me after June 1st, right? Now I've seen the draft and free agency play out. I know where I can go and what gives me the best chance. Like, it's actually smart. But bro, isn't that that was the first time you're hearing those numbers? Isn't that nuts that Jerry Jones agreed to that, bro?
Dude, his out isn't until 2028. Like, this is a new contract.
Oh, what do you think Michael Parsons is gonna ask for, bro? He's gonna be like, dude, if you gave Dak that, because Parsons has said he's like one of only a few people in the world that has Jerry Jones's like personal number. So he likes Parsons more than Dak. What do you think he's gonna have to pay Parsons after Garrett just got $40 million a year and messed that whole market up? Can't wait to see what Jalen Phillips is worth if he stays healthy this year. An oft-injured guy with that upside is gonna ask for at least $20 million if he stays healthy this year and produces 10+ sacks.
Next year, if they try to do anything with Dak, it's still ridiculous. June 1st, if they try to just cut him before June 1st, $55.9 million cap hit.
Can you highlight something for me?
$15.9 million. Now, if you post June 1st release, no cap, it's zero, no savings, and you got a $74 million dead cap in 2026 and a 55 in 2027. If you trade him, and like you said, it's a situation where I now see where I can go, you save 40 million. So that's the only way that they can, but you're still dealing with roughly 90 million over the next 2 years in dead cap, but you'll save 40 million next year if you trade him after the draft in a situation again where he can be like, you took a quarterback, okay, I want to go here and here.
Yeah. Can you highlight a comment for me, please?
Which one?
Stoneface Master LOL.
Trade two.
Okay. No, and I'm gonna be serious here because I'm the draft guy here. Okay, hold on a second. Okay.
It makes no sense.
I'm about to explain to you how big of an oxymoron that statement is. Okay,
you're the same person.
I'm trying to tell people this and they're not listening. All of you people that call Tua a spot thrower, what do you think Shedeur Sanders is? Okay, all the superpowers of Tua, the accuracy, the placement, the timing, the rhythm. Shedeur is the light version of that. None of those those are the things he does best. Well, those are the things he does best. But he doesn't do them on the level of Tua. And what he gets worse is his pocket presence is god-awful. His feel for the pocket. He drifts, and what happens? Any of you who play Madden and think you know football, check this one out. You know when you snap the ball and you drift back 8 or 12 yards and then you throw your football? Sanders does that in real life. He turns 3-step drops into like the depth of 9 to 12 yards, and then he takes a sack. You can't, and it's not, and listen, the O-line, was it good? No. But if you actually watch the tape, not all the sacks are on the O-line. A lot of them are him creating his pressure because of the way he drifts. His feel for the pocket, his presence in the pocket is not very good. And like I said, if you don't like Tua and you think Tua sucks, you're not going to be a fan of Shedeur because all the superpowers people highlight Tua has, those are the best things Shedeur does, but they're the light version of what Tua's ability is with those things. So I hate to be the bearer of bad news, and I hate to be the guy that's watched this kid and the All-22 since Jackson State to today to tell you this, but whoever's telling you replace Tua with Shedeur, no. If you want to replace him, you want a dart. You want a Tyler Shuck. You want a guy out of structure who can make plays and has the arm. That's what you want. You don't want a lighter version of Tua if you're not a Tua fan. That makes no sense.
Why do you think he didn't throw any out routes at his pro day?
Exactly. He's going to come in. Listen, Tua doesn't have the same arm and doesn't throw with the same drive and velocity as he did when he came out of Alabama because of the hip injury. It's much better. Tua's got a stronger arm than Shedeur Sanders right now. Shedeur Sanders is going to come into the league. Him and Quinn Ewers out of this class are going to have two of the weaker arms in the NFL.
Jonathan, what makes you think that they can build a better roster if they didn't do it for how many different quarterbacks? That's the thing that also makes me laugh. First thing is, if they trade Tua, it's a negative $19 million cap hit. We will be in the negative on our cap space. Right. The other thing is, everyone talks about, oh, we should have took Herbert, we should have took Love, we should have took Hurts. all of those quarterbacks would have crumbled in Miami because the Dolphins didn't care about the quarterback position from 2020 to 2022. It was about the defense. We're going to just don't lose us the game. Essentially, it was what it was. So it did not matter who the quarterback was. No success. And again, it's not about a Tua situation. It's a fundamental Miami Dolphin front office situation. It's not going to change until we get a new GM. So if you want to draft Shador, he's going to be in a situation where he's going to have a horrible offensive line. He's going to have to deal with all these other things. So it's like, you got to take that into perspective, guys.
Let me ask you this. Let's stick with one of the players you mentioned there. He says we can build a better roster. Why have the Eagles built the roster they've built, but they were able to pay 2 top receivers the way we paid Waddle and Tyreek? They're paying the offensive linemen. They paid Jalen Hurts. They pay defensive players. You know why? They know how to draft. They know how to supplement voids that are coming through the draft with talented players that are good enough to fill that draft, number one. They know how to structure their contracts. But look at Hurts. Talk about Hurts' success. Never mind Hurts. Let's go back. Let's look at the history of the Dolphins. This is where people don't realize Greer's been around for 20 years and started in the scouting department. There are philosophical beliefs in that building that have been there for 20 years. You look at the Ravens, the philosophical beliefs that have been there since Ozzie Newsome. They continue to draft the offensive line, for example, and the defensive trenches the same way they did under Ozzie Newsome after he left. I'll give you another example. Stick with the Philadelphia Eagles. Donovan McNabb, Carson Wentz, Michael Vick when he was there. Doug, did they ever cheapen on the offensive line? They all had great offensive lines, and they all had great defensive trench play and really good linebacker cores and good secondary support as well. The Eagles have had good draft philosophy for over 20 years, and they've reaped the benefits. The problem is we have philosophical and fundamental issues that are ingrained in this organization that are only going to change with a full cleaning of the house in the front office. And I will say this leads to Garfinkel not even being able to have fingerprints or thumbprints on football operations. You want to go play with the F1? Exactly. You want to go play with tennis? Cool. But we need football minds in charge of this. The owner who just has the pocket book and trusts the football minds. And why do you think Boyer and these guys and Crossman stuck around for so long? Because they turned on Flores and they sided with Greer and Garfinkel. Greer is Garfinkel's boy, and that's why they held them over with McDaniel. Like, they play straight clubhouse stuff here, and Garfinkel's not even a football guy. Like, you need this roster stuff. It's higher than one quarterback being paid, because explain to me why the Eagles can do it.
And to go off of what Jonathan said and how Herbert rookie year records, first off, second in the NFL in YAC. Tua's wide receivers his rookie year are not in the NFL anymore. Herbert's wide receivers look who he had. He had Hunter, he had Eckler, he had Keenan Allen, but again, second in the NFL in YAC. So you got to take things into perspective. I'm not saying Herbert's bad, but we got to take things into perspective.
He's not. And you mentioned a key name there, Eckler. Correct me if I'm wrong. About 50 to 55% of Herbert's yardage came at or behind the line of scrimmage to Austin Eckler. That's like a fact.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So, listen, I don't knock Herbert. I think he's good, but look at what Harbaugh's turned him into.
That's what he needed to.
You know, Harbaugh's turned him into more of a game manager and tempered him a little bit as opposed to what Staley and guys were doing him. But that also, listen, I would tell you this much. I think if he had the chance, Harbaugh would have taken McCarthy over him.
Mm-hmm. And again, at the end of the day, Herbert didn't make the playoffs until when, and he still hasn't won anything. So it's,
no. And remember the loss? Do you remember the loss to the Jags, dude?
Oh, you couldn't score one touchdown in the second half?
Bro, if that happened in Miami, never mind Tua, the fans would run the whole team and the coaching staff out of Miami for the rest of our life. That was like the Atlanta Falcons losing to the New England Patriots just in the first round.
But here's the thing, Jonathan. Don't the people who are critical or overcritical of Tua do the same thing by saying he can't beat good
Can't
teams.
win. Yeah. And guess what? Go look at his winning percentage. It's what, 64, 65%. He has I think he has top 5 or top 3 out of all the active quarterbacks. He has a top 3, top 5 winning percentage when you actually break it down. But to my point earlier, Doug, okay, look at the 2022 game in Buffalo. We should have swept them, right? Tyreek Hill and Trent Sherfield drop footballs that should have been touchdowns. Either one of them catch that ball, we win. Josh Boyer and the defense give up the 3rd and 17 before the end of half and turn it into a touchdown. They get that stop. We win that game. Tua was amazing, and they told us you can play in the winter, right?
Look at this past year in
Exactly.
Buffalo.
I went over the EPA, right? He had the second best EPA ever against the Buffalo Bills.
The cherry on the top for that game is he can't. A lot of people say he can't extend the plays. He can't. To tie the game up, he had to extend the play, roll out to his right, his other dominant hand,
and
throw a touchdown pass to Jalen Waddle to tie the game, and then 61-yard field goal lost us that game.
You know what I say to people who say you can't extend out of the play, Doug? Because I know we'll never forget this because we were live reacting to it. Put on the Ravens game in one of the greatest comebacks in the last 20 years in the NFL. And how many touchdowns to Waddle were outside of structure and outside the pocket? Please, okay? We see him always get outside the pocket, outside of structure, and make a throw inside the 20. You know, they trust this guy to convert 3rd downs and 4th downs on 4th and 2 and 4th and 3 more than they do for us to run it on 4th and 2 and 4th and 3, bro. You know what I mean? Listen, the fact of the matter is Tua just can't stay healthy. And that's what's going to be his downfall.
It's a bare minimum,
growth,
Jonathan, but
stunted our development.
We've been told he can't do it. But we're rambling. We're over time. Go check out Reason for Inside the NFL. We will be there next week, 7:00 on Wednesday, doing mock drafts. We're getting ready it's the day before the draft, man. We got a lot of draft stuff to do. Reason, episode 3 in the books. Always a pleasure.
Always a pleasure, bro.
We will see you guys next week.
What's up, man?